The Taj Mahal many consider the most beautiful building in the world, and travelers go to India primarily to go out to Agra to view its beauty day and night. They often see only the Taj and other beautiful government buildings in New Delhi and some of the exotic temples of the Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, Parsis, and Muslims. Often they avoid facing the overwhelming poverty of millions. India is a democracy, received its independence in 1947 after 250 years of British rule. It is a land of 15 major languages and the 7th largest country in the world, stretches from the Himalayas to the Indian Ocean. AUW's interest in diversity demands more in-depth perusal of various cultures.
We have 2 students from the University of Virginia and a special guest. The students are Tony Stupski, a 4th-year student at UVA, and Julie Supka, also a 4th-year student. Our special guest is Dr. Monty Chawla, who has a PhD in physics from the University of Louisiana, and he's here to help share his cultural insights with us. Dr. Chawla has been in the United States for 26 years now. First, before we do anything else, I would like to ask Julie to tell us about the UVA program.
Okay. The UVA program was started by Dr. K.L. Sheshagiri Rao. A number of years ago, he began the program. This past spring in 1991, Tony and I and a number of other students went to an ashram in Rishikesh, which is in Uttar Pradesh, India. The name of the ashram was Dayananda Ashram, after Swami Dayananda. And we were supposed to stay there for probably about 3 months and then do an extra month of traveling. So we were going to be there for about, from about January to May. And due to the Gulf War, our program was cut short. And I had to return after about a month and a week, and Tony stayed a little longer. So that's how the program was set up.
Tony, could you tell us what you had to do to be accepted for the UVA program?
It was really, there wasn't much, there wasn't an application process or anything. If you wanted to go, he pretty much took anybody. I think most of the students were religious studies majors, but there were a few people who just went out of interest. But the program was mainly focused on learning about Hinduism. So it's through the religious studies department.
Dr. Chawla, getting back to the cultural aspects, could you give us an example of when you had your first impression of the United States and what this was all about?
I met my first American, I would say, summer of '65 in New Delhi. I very well recount those moments. I was going upstairs to the embassy, and this gentleman was climbing down the stairs going to the street. And for a moment, our we exchanged glances, and he smiled, and I smiled back, and I concluded that this was the friendliest country on earth. So I decided to go to this country.
Oh, very good. What do you students think we should know about the Indian culture that would help people in this country better understand the people of India?
Well, first of all, there's nothing we could possibly say that would prepare anyone for going to India. You can read all of the books in the world. I do recommend the Lonely Planet Guide for anyone that ever wants to go to India because it helps out a lot. It's quite different. I don't know, you're without any bearings at all. But I found the country to be very warm, and the people are very curious, and you're just as curious about them too. Also, as well, I didn't find there to be much communication problem. People were speaking in English a lot, so that was easy. It was easy.
I think one of the main things about India is the religious fervor there. Everybody is really eager to like go out and exchange, their views about religion, and they're also really curious to find out about what America's like. And I mean, the cultural exchange is definitely, it comes without any much effort at all. I mean, Indians are really eager. They come up and introduce themselves to you. They're really friendly.
Well, what impact do you think that their religion has on their day-to-day life, that things that you wouldn't see in this country? I think we have a very secular society, but how does it affect just everyday living for them?
It is their everyday living. That's the only way to put it. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. It's so intertwined. The culture and the religion are so intertwined that it's hard to separate the two. From just small rituals in the morning to just basic concept about roles of family members seems to all go back to religion in the end. So.
Just all the rules of life are, governed by Dharma, and that's pretty much like a framework of, how you live your life, how you make your living, raising your family. Everything is like governed under, what could be considered religious law.
Well, Monty, how did you find this a difficult adjustment to make when you came here, to go from this religious situation to our very secular society?
Fortunately, Americans are very tolerant of other people, so it was not that difficult to be introduced to secular society. As a matter of fact, this society is not as secular as you may want to say so. Many times I was invited to churches and was exposed to their way of worship, and which left a remarkable impression on me. So I sort of enjoyed that to a good while, and although the religion does not play a significant role from day-to-day life in America, we don't have religious holidays. That's the only part where we miss out the absence of religion. In India, they have a lot of religious holidays. But apart from that, people just have as much respect for God in this country as they have in India. Right?
Definitely.
Julie, what was it like for a woman in India? Did you find that the role that women play there is different than here? And would you be able to make an adjustment like that if you live there permanently?
It's all about having an attitude. You have to have a correct attitude. The first thing that I encountered was just the long arm of the media that, can grab the people of India. I felt like I was running into a lot of people that had this concept of me with blonde hair being almost like this larger-than-life screen star kind of Hollywood person, because the only contact they really had, or all the stereotypes were overwhelming, I think, to many of the people in India. So they see me, I'm very different looking, and I think they had certain expectations of me because I am different looking.
Farrah Fawcett does it again.
I don't know. I had to deal with that. Sometimes it was exhausting to go out into the marketplace. I had to really be up for it. I had to really, really be up for it, because I'd be bombarded with people coming up to me, wanting to talk to me, or just standing there and staring. And sometimes you didn't want to feel so self-conscious like that. But I will say one thing that's important for anyone that will go to India as a woman is that we have to understand that we can't take our Western views and try to put them on the people of India. I think that it's important that we respect their culture. We can't go over there and change anything overnight. We have to have, as long as everyone's treated respectfully. I'm not saying that anyone subjugate themselves to some sort of treatment, but it's definitely important to have respect for their values and understand that, they're a very rich culture as well. So.
Well, Tony, could you tell us something about their values?
Something about their values. Well, one thing I was going to add about what she was saying about being a woman in India is that I think they do make a definite effort to accommodate women travelers in India. Like, I know on the train systems they have separate cars for women if to alleviate any sort of hassle. And I saw quite a few women traveling by themselves in India, and not having any serious problems. I mean, so. It's not as difficult as somebody might imagine. Yeah, definitely.
So what are the values that are different? I would imagine that having a lot of money wouldn't be as important there.
Well, I mean, it could be just as important, but I would say that people are a little bit more outgoing, and people don't value privacy as much. Just because there's so many people, and the family is definitely much more important, much more centered.
There are these sometimes in some of the areas there were these group family units living together with a lot of relatives all in the same house. So it really that's a lot different. It's not so individualistic at times, at least in some of the rural areas where Tony and I were. I mean, I can't make a big generalization, but I will say from my experience that I found the larger families to be kind of unique.
Well, maybe it's more like our rural cultures were before we became so industrialized.
Yeah, maybe so. There's some of this. There's this idea of the daughter-in-law moving in with the husband's family, leaving her village and moving into this whole different family lifestyle. She doesn't stay at home, though. There's a certain pattern that it usually takes.
Well, Monty, do you think, having lived in both countries, that we get a realistic view of India when we see movies like Gandhi and Jewel in the Crown?
They are pretty close to the truth. They do a good job on Indian culture, in my way of thinking. Also, of course, you realize that there are certain elements of Indian culture they do not capture. They portray Indians to be very idealistic. Common Indian person is far from that. They value money, they love money. Just like any other person anywhere else on earth, families are near and dear to them. Personal things are as important.
Tony, while you were there, was there any feature or any part of our culture you would like to have had in India, or was it a complete acceptance of what was there?
There wasn't really anything I missed from America, just because I was being so entertained with just absorbing everything that they had to offer. There's never a dull moment, that's for sure. I didn't really think I had time just to sit down and miss anything, just because sometimes I wish I brought a little bit more, like some sort of a musical exchange, like something, because that was like one thing I value from our culture that I wish I could have shared. Mm-hmm. Like when we were in Varanasi, it's a big musical center there, and there was music being performed all night, and I was just wishing that I could somehow like share my music with them as well.
Were they doing our kind of music, or did they have their own?
It's Indian classical music.
Oh, wow.
The sitar and tabla.
The tabla, the drums, yeah.
Oh,
that was one time where I thought, if I could have had a tape to play to share something with them as well. But
well, would you have taken our music, or would you have tried to play theirs?
I would have, because I can appreciate theirs, but I would have taken mine to give to them as well.
Well, when you were traveling around, I think you pretty much went from north to south in the country, if I remember correctly. What kinds of transportation did you use? Did you always go on a train, or?
Generally on trains. There are some places where you couldn't, where there weren't trains and you had to take a bus, like through the Himalayas. There weren't really train routes. And when we went to Nepal, we flew. But the trains it's a very effective system that they have. I mean, there's rail lines going just about wherever you want to go. It's a great place to meet people. You know, you take a long train ride. You know, you don't have anything to do except sit there and talk to the people that you're sitting with. So I mean, trains are really the ideal way to get around.
Now, what about when you were in a city or a rural community? How did you get around in that particular place in a city, or did you walk, or do they have local buses? Or
yeah, there were local buses. It just depended on where you went. Some places were small enough that you could, like some towns we went to were small enough that you could walk around and, you know, see all the sights that you needed to see in the city. There were rickshaw drivers that are, you know, very easy to hire. Yeah, in fact, they're you know, they come up and, you know, try to get you to.
They compete with each other
exactly,
to get you.
to be the guide, to be your guide. You know, there are plenty of people volunteering to chauffeur you around.
Everyone wants to take you
taxis,
anywhere.
rickshaws.
It sounds like you had some kind of a crazy experience with these people.
No, it's just the whole, being an American over there, the whole idea of competing for your attention on the marketplace. You have to get used to the bartering system. You can't go in somewhere and there's a price tag, and it's that, you know, it's that simple. It's like you have to learn the hard way sometimes that you're getting taken for a ride once in a while, just being a foreigner and looking a little ignorant and walking around. So it was funny.
Well, did you have any funny situations that would have been created because you didn't understand a language in a village, or you didn't understand how the money worked? Was the money the same throughout the country, or did you have to use different mediums of exchange in different places?
The money was never too much of a problem. Occasionally you'd have the language barrier would pop up, where, you know, you'd try to be, you know, getting to one place. Like my friends, they tried to be taken to a hotel one night, and they were saying, or to a dormitory, and they kept saying dormitory to the rickshaw driver, and they ended up taking them to a college, to some sort of into the men's dormitory, of the college. And one of the women that I was traveling with, you know, I mean, all the students were kind of like freaking out that there was a woman wandering through the dormitory at night. Sort of
What is the exchange right now? I think it's...
Yeah, 25. When I was there, it was 20, but I think, yeah, it's 26 now. And you can also get a better exchange on the black market. You know, if you want to risk changing money with rickshaw drivers and taxi drivers, you can get a better exchange rate. If you bring big bills, especially.
Oh. That's the same in every country, I think.
That's definitely the same in every country.
Are you ready to go back?
Oh, definitely. I feel like I was just introduced to enough of to get my interest and like really focus my study. Is the ashram life was what was really inspiring to me.
Well, why don't you tell us some more about that?
Yeah. Well, it was a traditional Vedantan ashram, where it's the Upanishads are the primary religious text that they're teaching, and it's. Do you want to tell a little bit about what the ashram life was like? It was very directed. How, you know, the day-to-day life. They get up early, they meditate, and there was instruction you could go to listen to. And I just found it, you know, to be the way that they look at life to be very inspiring.
It was very peaceful in the ashram.
Very
It
peaceful?
was very, very peaceful.
Did they have separate quarters for the men and the women?
Yes, they had separate quarters, but there was much interaction in the ashram between men and women.
Yeah, well, the ashram was situated in Rishikesh, and it was, you know, it's pretty typical mid-sized town in India. It was about 30,000. We stayed there for about 2 months. We got used to everything. Got used to like eating the fruits in the market and like buying food. We went visited some tailors, got some Indian clothes made so we could stay cool in the heat. And then we went down to Delhi and Agra and saw some of the big Mughal sites, like
Taj Mahal.
the Taj Mahal. I mean, those were probably like the biggest tourist attractions, the biggest like architectural monuments in India or in the north were Muslim. And from there we went down south, down through Hyderabad and Mysore. There's a big Hindu kingdom down there. Mysore is famous. It's got a really big palace, some incredible temples. Most of the Hindu temples are in the south because of the Mughal invasions. They destroyed a lot of the older Hindu temples. So all the big Hindu temples are in the south. We went down to the beach in Kovalam. It was delightful, like right on the Indian Ocean. Just lie out on the beach and lots of tropical fruit. And from there we went to Tamil Nadu. There's a bunch of big temple cities that were they have like 80-meter high gopurams just filled with deities, sculptures of the gods and goddesses. From there we went like up the coast, up the eastern coast to some more. There were more temples on the beaches in Mahabalipuram and Puri. There's a variety of different temples. We went to Bodh Gaya, which is where the Buddha was enlightened. It's just a short distance from Gaya, and from there we went to Varanasi, which is another big spiritual center in India. And overall, I think the worth for me for traveling in India was like, I definitely learned a lot about myself, and the teaching I got in the ashram to begin it all with. They're basically trying to teach you how to be at peace with yourself, to be happy with yourself. And then, through the trials of traveling, you're interacting with people, and you're sort of like getting a chance to put it into action,
Right.
To be able to remain calm in like any kind of situation.
Totally equanimous in all sorts of situations is important.
To be able to be at peace with other people. And I think that was what the trip really did for me, was to make me feel comfortable with myself and to make me be able to feel comfortable with whoever I was with. At any time, Yeah.
The beautiful thing about India is you can bring it home with you, and that's the trick.
The peace, you brought the peace home.
Definitely, you can bring the peace of mind as well as all of the other things that come with it.
Yes.
Well, I'm really happy you could be with us today, and thank you, Monty. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you.
As special guest of AAUW, and I would just like, before we go, to read the AAUW policy statement. This program was presented by members of the Alexandria Branch, American Association of University Women. AAUW values and seeks a diverse membership. There are no barriers to full participation in this organization on the basis of gender, race, creed, age, sexual orientation, national origin, or disability. Membership is not by invitation. The American Association of University Women is open to all graduates of accredited colleges and universities. For AAUW membership information, call 202-785-7700. And thank you for joining us for AAUW On the Go tonight.